My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 87 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before I do, let's celebrate the winners. Last week, one of our very own premium members won the $120,000 mega DraftKings tournament. Obviously, they split those winnings. They weren't the sole winner, unfortunately, but they did build an optimal lineup using our tools, our insight, and our information. He had a 609-point lineup to take that down. Congratulations to him. And that premium member success isn't unique. Last week, we also had G Money 1968 said, "This was my first time using the DraftKings Optimizer. I won first place. It was a small $1 contest, but a good start. I have used other optimizers in the past, and I've never come close." And just 2 weeks ago, Squirts put up $24,000 in winnings. This is the last 2 weeks. Over the last few months, we have had $470,000 in winnings from premium members alone. This is not a coincidence, because these people have access to the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. And these projections are preloaded into our DraftKings Optimizer. This is the optimizer that is building lineups for people. This optimizer has ownership projections built into it already, the best in the game. It has score projections built into it already, some of the best in the game. And then this builds lineups, and people use these lineups and then make money. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top. It's only $10 a month to unlock all the picks, the bets, the round line leans, but DraftKings specifically, you're going to unlock the tools like the optimizer. You're going to unlock the insight like the ownership projections, the cheat sheet, and everything else. WeWantPicks.com. Just click Become a Member at the top. It's only $10 a month, and here is your ticket. Here is the success. The proof is in the pudding from all of these other premium members. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We only have 11 fights, and 3 of them are last-minute shuffle-rooskies, or is it 2 of them? We got a whole bunch of random last-minute people swapping in, swapping out. We have a bunch of UFC debuts on this card. We also have one of the most heavy favorite cards we have had in a long time. And anytime you get a very heavy favorite card, it's hard to build a lineup that separates you from everybody else. You need to get the best favorites that are going to score the most, and you need to find that one underdog that wins, if there's even one that wins this week. Or you need to get the underdog that loses but scores the most points. It's going to be a tricky card, but let's go ahead and give it our best shot. Opening up UFC Vegas 87, we have Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady making his UFC debut. He's taking on Loik Radzhabov. Al-Selwady's the slight favorite here, $8,400. He's a forward pressure striker. He never sits still. He's constantly working. He's got a lot of fast twitch action. I mean, look at that. I could be, oh, you can't see my arms. Damn. I could do a robot, no problem. Really fast twitch muscles. He's just firing stuff instantly, lightning fast, and then constantly feinting in little jerk movements to get you to bait. And then if he wants to shoot, he'll shoot, because people forget that he can wrestle because his striking is so good. They're so worried about that. He fakes a shot. Boom. He gets in there. So Al-Selwady's very good, very well-rounded guy. He is making his UFC debut here. He is a young guy, and he does have a tough test in Loik Radzhabov. This guy is a non-stop wrestler. He has impressive throws, big, powerful hands. His striking is sloppy. Let's not pretend that it's not sloppy, but it is powerful. And he has no issue just coming forward and bombing away to then try to work a takedown. He does have very good cardio. He can grapple, wrestle, come forward, keep that pace for a full 15 minutes. He is coming off this loss to Rebecki. You're going to see KO, TKO. He wasn't chinned. He wasn't just put out with a punch. His legs got absolutely destroyed in that fight. So what ends up happening after you just watch somebody get their legs destroyed is typically their next opponent is like, oh, shit, let me just kick this dude's legs. So we may see Al-Selwady just chopping Loik's legs down. Just chop the leg, chop the leg, chop the leg. And now Loik is going to be desperate, worried about his own legs, start shooting wild takedowns, things like that. This fight could go many different ways. We can get a super fast, quick knockout. We can get a very boring, wet blanket decision. I think Al-Selwady wins this fight, but insanely low confidence in that. DraftKings-wise, again, heavy favorite card. We have to find the very few. There's probably only 2 underdogs on this card that I'm giving a real chance to. Loik is one of them. $7,800, he's probably your best bet for a DraftKings lineup. because I think he can get the takedowns, maybe close that distance, score some points, if not potentially win. Again, very heavy favorite card. So if I'm just picking straight winners, I'm going Al-Selwady. But if I'm building a lineup within a budget and I need underdogs in that lineup because you can't have 6 favorites, that's just not how the budgeting works, I think Loik Radzhabov is one of the best underdogs that you can throw in your lineup, and $7,800 is a decent price point for that. I mean, look at his last win. A decision, 120 points. Anything that resembles this at $7,800 would be spectacular. Then we have Ludovit Klein. Ludovit Klein is taking on short notice step up AJ Cunningham. Ludovit Klein, very good, very technical striker. Very technical striker. What I am surprised here, though, is his round line. A lot of people think he's going to win by finish, and let's go through his history. Decision, sub-loss, decision. And his one and only fight that he won by KO, TKO in the UFC was his UFC debut 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Where I'm going with this is Ludovit Klein's the far better striker, very technical, very clean, knows exactly what he's doing, shoots a lot of takedowns. But let's look at his scores. 86 points, 41 points. That's a draw. Let's leave that alone. 76 points, 70 points. These are wins. This fight against Bahamondes, he was an underdog, $7,100. He had 3 takedowns. The cleaner strikes only scored 86 points. You cannot spend $9,600 on Ludovit Klein. Yes, he is fighting a short notice UFC debut in AJ Cunningham. No stats here, but he is coming off the Contender Series loss. Then he won on the regional scene, and now he's back. AJ Cunningham is sort of a country boy brawler. He's going to come forward. He's going to bomb. He's tough. He'll stay in your face. He'll swing. He's not really looking to wrestle, but it's there. I do imagine AJ Cunningham gets pieced up. He's not going to be the better striker. He's not going to be the better wrestler. He's going to get pieced up here. The salaries in DraftKings reflect the betting odds. The salaries in DraftKings are a direct reflection of who wins the fight, not how well they will score in a fantasy lineup. Ludovit Klein is going to win this fight. He could potentially stop AJ Cunningham just because of the short notice factor, but we got to go with the information we have, and the information we have says Ludovit Klein is a decision fighter who doesn't put up very real points. Therefore, I cannot spend $9,600 on the most expensive fighter on this card. And there's no value in AJ Cunningham. He's not winning this fight. Then we have Claudio Ribeiro taking on that jump cut was because some kid, he's a kid, I'm 99% sure he's in high school, has a Camaro with the loudest exhaust I have ever heard. It's nuts. And every day he drives by, he's not even on my road, and he drives by on the main road, and it is so freaking loud. I want to slap the shit out of that kid. And I don't care. I mean, it's 9:30 in the morning. Who cares right now? But when he's doing that at 10 o'clock at night, I just want an old man like, get off my lawn. Anyway, that kid sucks. We got Christian Leroy Duncan. He's taking on Claudio Ribeiro. Christian Leroy Duncan, high pressure guy, solid technique. He has 8 finishes in 9 wins, multiple regional championships before he made his way to the UFC. He'll throw anything. He'll throw everything. He will spin. He gets wild, sometimes sloppy. We saw that in the loss to Armen Petrosyan. This loss was because Christian Leroy Duncan was feeling himself, started doing fun stuff. And Armen's like, well, all right, well, I'm just going to be technical, and I'll just beat you with good old-fashioned 1-2s and technique. And that is what happened. Christian Leroy Duncan is a very talented guy that has some pressure, has some power, has some very clean technique, but does start to feel himself and take some chances. And he's taking on Claudio Ribeiro. Claudio Ribeiro is a dangerous guy. Like Duncan, he's a powerful striker. He'll let his hands fly. He'll come forward, he'll mix it up, and he'll chase a knockout. Unlike Duncan, though, he's not as clean with his technique. He's not as crisp. He does get hit. You'll see that his 2 losses in the UFC are finish losses. He did have some success against Roman Kopylov. He won that first round, and then Roman came back and did what Roman does. Problem with Claudio Ribeiro is he is sort of finish or bust, if you will. He is very dangerous. He will come forward, but he will get hit. He will get into trouble, and he doesn't always work his way out of that. He beat Joseph Holmes, who hates Jacob's guts and literally threatened his life. But he lost to Abdul-Razak Hassan. He lost to Roman Kopylov. And you could look at those 2 losses and say, well, he's losing to anybody that'll stand there and strike with him. Or you could look at those losses and say, honestly, he's losing to some of the better people. Razak Al-Hassan is a judo black belt that has insanely powerful hands. Roman Kopylov is an insanely good striker. So these are quality losses. And now we have a guy in Claudio who's very dangerous, who, yes, has a couple of losses, but they are quality losses. And the first time he fought a bum, he beat the shit out of him. Problem is, he's not fighting a bum here. He's fighting Christian Leroy Duncan, who is very good, who is very powerful, who can get to Claudio, who can touch him up, can beat him. I think Duncan wins this fight. Claudio is probably a decent underdog, but not for a cash game. Not a confident underdog, but he certainly can win this fight. He's got big power. If you're building a large field tournament, I would have a little bit of exposure to Claudio. Couple of lineups with Claudio in it because he can land that punch. He can make it happen. But Christian Leroy Duncan's going to be the better fighter. Going to use his technique. Going to piece him up and probably finish him. Christian Leroy Duncan is going to be the pick and probably safe for some of your cash game lineups. Then we have Javid Basharat taking on Aiemann Zahabi. Javid Basharat, I love the Basharat brothers. They're my go-to. I throw them both in safety parlays. I throw them both in the regular parlays. I bet the shit out of them, and they continue to deliver. Both of them, Javid and Farid. They both are incredible. Javid gets a little looser, a little more, feels himself, takes a little more chances than his brother does, but he's a very, very good fighter. He's an insanely good grappler that has technical striking as well. We've seen him out wrestle people. We've seen him out strike people. He is coming off of this no decision, this no contest to Victor Henry. Kicked him right in the dick, and the fight could not continue. And the first round was, one judge gave Victor Henry the first round. Javid didn't come out as dominant as I thought he would, but I believe he was going to be well on his way to winning that fight. I think Javid probably wins this fight as well, but let's look at the scores. A dominant win over Mendonca, not even 100 points. A dominant win over Tony Gravely, not even 100 points. A dominant win over Jones, barely 60 points. Cannot spend the $9,500 on Javid Basharat. He is fighting Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann Zahabi, yes, he was finished by Hikaru Ramos, but he is a pretty durable guy outside of that. He's a pretty patient guy. He'll wait on the outside. He'll look for his techniques. He does have power. We saw that in the Arichi Lang fight. We saw that in the Draco Rodriguez fight. But he's not a big, powerful striker. He landed clean. Draco sucks. He's not in the UFC anymore. Arichi Lang, I mean, he's actually a decent fighter, and Aiemann Zahabi just caught him in an exchange with a wild hook. So I don't think you need to worry about Aimann's power in this fight. I think Javid does what he's going to do. Dance around the outside, pick him apart, get the takedowns, win this fight. You cannot spend the $9,500 on him, though. He's not going to cover his salary. A lot of people think he's going to finish Aiemann. I don't see Aiemann winning this fight, and he certainly doesn't cover his salary if he doesn't win by finish. Not even close. So this is a fade on both sides, but Javid very confident in him just to straight up win the fight. Then we have Vinicius Oliveira taking on UFC newcomer Bernardo Sopaj. Both of these guys are making their UFC debut. We don't have any fancy statistics to look at. But Vinicius Oliveira is a big, dangerous guy who comes forward and looks to finish fights. He just charges forward, throws everything at you looking for a finish. He's sloppy as hell, but he is very, very dangerous. And he's not just chaos and sloppy on his feet. He is on the ground as well. If he gets you to the ground, he is just hammer fist raining down trying to get that finish. And he is massive. You're going to see the weigh-ins. He's going to be much larger in the weigh-ins, especially compared to Bernardo Sopaj. $8,600. If Vinicius wins this fight, he will absolutely cover that salary without question. That's who this guy is. Comes out there, lays it all out. Wild finish in the Contender Series, looking for another one here. He is taking on UFC newcomer Bernardo Sopaj. Some places say Sopaj, other places say Sopaj. I don't know which one it is, but he's very affordable here at $7,600. And that's sort of a little bit of a glimmer of hope when you're chasing underdogs, because I do think he is a good underdog. He's very fast-paced. He's a high-energy striker. He does have power for his size. He's a little small. He does have power for his size, incredible speed. He's going to constantly move forward. He's going to stay light on his feet. When he sees openings, he will explode into combinations. He's got good takedown defense as well because his hips are great. He doesn't really shoot offensive takedowns, and he is a small guy for this weight class. That might benefit him on short notice. He doesn't have to cut a ton of weight. And this is short notice. This fight was put together on Tuesday. Not a lot of time between a Tuesday and a Saturday when you're getting into the biggest fight of your life. I personally think the short notice and the size difference will matter. I think Vinicius can win this fight just by being bigger. But we need underdogs. We need underdogs to build these lineups. And I think Bernardo Sopaj is one of the best on the card. He's the better striker of the two. He is the better, more technical striker. He's the faster striker as well. He's just not the more powerful guy. So I do think Sopaj can win this fight. I think Oliveira can blow his load in the first round, and then Sopaj will just take over, piece him up, make something happen. Or Sopaj just gets pushed around and bullied. You're going to have to pick your side here. I am picking Vinicius Oliveira to win. But when we're looking at salaries, we're looking at price points, $7,600 looks pretty juicy when you have a guy as good, as fast, and as technical as Bernardo Sopaj. You should have some exposure to him in your DraftKings lineups. Then we have Eryk Anders taking on Jamie Pickett. This is the featured prelim. This is the main event for the prelims. And it's a little sloppy. Both of these guys have not won a fight in a decent amount of time. You got to go all the way back to 2022 to get a win from Dawkins. He is coming off this loss to Marc-Andre Barrault. He is a giant, very physically fit, athletic, dangerous guy. That's who Eryk Anders is. He will come forward. He will bully. He will throw. He will kick. He will punch. He will wrestle. He'll do all the things. He relies very much on his athleticism. He's an insane athlete. He's competed at multiple sports at a very high level. But he's getting a little older. And the lack of technique, and I'm not saying lack of technique like he doesn't know how to fight. He obviously knows how to fight, but he does rely heavily on his natural God-given talents, more so than just clean, precise striking. And it's starting to catch up to him. He just lost to Marc-Andre Barrault. You'll see, oh, it's a decision loss. Marc-Andre is very good. Marc-Andre is not very dangerous, and Marc-Andre dropped Eryk Anders instantly. First punch he threw, dropped him. And it's like, ooh, Eryk Anders, 37 years old, starting to look 37 years old. But he is durable. He is tough. He will come forward. He will look to wrestle, grind, throw you to the ground, throw punches at you. Good enough cardio to keep that pace. He's taking on Jamie Pickett. And people are going to be brutal about, oh, Jamie Pickett, how is he still in the UFC? Blah, 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 blah. Jamie Pickett is actually much better than his recent 4-fight skid. Yes, he's lost 4 in a row. The Dawkins loss is not a great one. Tululin's still in the UFC. Bo Nickel is future champion. And Josh Freem, I mean, that fight was kind of sloppy and close. Jamie worked in some takedowns in that fight. The biggest issue with Jamie Pickett is he doesn't let his hands go. He's actually a good striker. He can touch people up. He can make stuff happen, but he doesn't let his hands go. That is the biggest issue with Jamie Pickett. If he let his hands go and you could trust him to try to finish fights and let his hands fly, he might win this fight. But he hasn't shown us that he will do that. You can't count on him to do that. So I think Eryk Anders is going to win this fight with just, honestly, sheer physicality. I am not going to spend the money on Eryk Anders, though, because Jamie Pickett is tough. And I think Jamie Pickett can survive. And yes, okay, Dawkins subbed him. TKO from Tululin, sub from Bo Nickel. But Bo Nickel's an animal. Dennis Tululin's a great, dangerous striker. And Dawkins, while he is a jiu-jitsu nerd, he's a jiu-jitsu nerd. And he nerded it up. I think that Jamie Pickett can survive, at least last a little bit. I don't know if Eryk Anders is going to cover his salary. He probably wins this fight. He's just going to use physicality, strength, athleticism, and get it done. So Eryk Anders is the pick here, $9,300. Maybe he'll be worth that, but let's work our way up and see what else we got here as far as heavy favorites are concerned. We got Steve Erceg taking on Matt Schnell. Steve Erceg, $9,200. Doesn't cover his salary. I'll tell you right now, DraftKings-wise, not worth the money. And that's the game we have to play. When it's heavy favorites, we have to play that game. Who will be worth the money? If you're building just a safe cash entry lineup, you want to get your most confident favorites, squeeze them all in there, and then get the best dogs you can. But if we're trying to chase the big money, the $25,000 ticket that I showed you earlier, the premium member success that we've seen here, if you're trying to chase this success, we need to find the highest scoring favorites at the lowest salary, obviously, and the highest scoring underdogs. Steve Erceg, I do not think will make an optimal lineup. While I am very confident he wins, because his striking is getting better. He's got very good grappling. He can piece you up at distance. We just saw that. All of a sudden, he fought Costa, Alessandro Costa, and he put up 70 104 significant strikes, 104 total strikes. That's high volume from a guy that only put up 56 in his previous fight. He's starting to put things together. He's starting to evolve. He's starting to break out of his jiu-jitsu nerdery and become an actual MMA fighter. I think he wins this fight, but he is fighting Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell, historically, ridiculously tough. In this Sumerderji fight, he died. We watched him die. It was the first death in the UFC. Dead. They were scrambling. The PR team's like, what do we do? A man just died. What do we do? And they got the priest. And before they were able to get the stretcher into the octagon, Matt Schnell just rose up. Just rose up like The Undertaker or Kane. Rose up like Kane. And then all of a sudden, beat Sumerderji. Just all of a sudden, rose from the dead and then beat him. And that just speaks to how insanely tough Matt Schnell is. Yeah, he was just put out by Nicolau, but Nicolau's different level. So Matt Schnell is a ridiculously durable guy. Fighting a guy who's not particularly dangerous, or at least hasn't been in the UFC. I think Matt Schnell survives. I think this goes the distance. I do think Steve Erceg will get the win. I think he'll have the volume. I think he'll squeeze out a takedown, even though his last fight, I think he was 1 for 8 in takedown attempts. And I think Steve Erceg wins this fight. All of that being said, neither one of these guys can be in your lineup because A, I don't think Schnell wins, and I don't think he'll score very well in a loss. And B, Steve Erceg is not going to score well even in a win here. So you got to fade them both, but Matt Schnell is tough enough to make sure this fight goes the distance. And then we have Umar Nurmagomedov, and he is taking on a UFC newcomer in Bekzat Almakhan. Umar Nurmagomedov is exactly who you think he is with this last name, and then on top of it, a good striker. He's not just a dive at legs Nurmagomedov. He will come forward. It's mostly kicks. It's wild that his kicks are so good, but he's got phenomenal kicks. He can manage the range with those phenomenal kicks, and then decent power in his hands as well. He's coming off his first UFC knockout. His first one over Hani Barcelos. Hani is 40 years old, but he did blast him. He did put him down, and he did get it done. He beat Nate Maness with wrestling. He beat Brian Kelleher with the grappling. He beat Morozov with the grappling. And yes, he's got 3 finishes in 4 UFC fights. I don't know if he's going to get a finish here, but even when he doesn't get finishes, he puts up good points. 105 against Nate Maness, 105 against Brian Kelleher, 112 in the sub against Morozov, then obviously 114 when he beat Hani Barcelos. If I come down and we go look at his opponent, we're not going to see any data here because it is a UFC debut. It's not short notice. This has been booked for a little while. But he's a very good fighter. There's some stuff going on the internet saying his record's fake. Half of those wins aren't in mixed martial arts. They're in some other. Listen, that other martial art that he was competing in that people are saying that's not MMA, it shouldn't be on his record, is basically MMA. It's basically MMA. The guy's in a third world country fighting on literally backyards, it looks like. But he's very good. That doesn't take away from his skills. If you look at his actual skills, he's a very good fighter. Tight, dangerous striking, excellent offensive wrestling. He's smooth on his feet. He will fire away in the pocket. As soon as you get comfortable in a kickboxing match, he transitions to body locks and singles to get it to the ground. He does not have great control on the ground, but he can work in some takedowns. He's very dangerous. 13 knockouts in his career. And don't let the record fool you into thinking he's only a kickboxer because he can do all the things. Does he win this fight? Absolutely not. Is he a very good signing by the UFC? Absolutely yes. I think this fight goes a little longer. Can Umar finish him? I think so. He might be able to submit him late, but I don't think he's the round line's 1.5. I think he cruises past 1.5 rounds. I think Bekzat has good enough striking, dangerous enough striking, fast enough, good hips that he can at least keep it standing for a little bit or avoid an instant takedown. Umar's going to win this fight. The question then becomes, he's $9,700. Do we spend that money? I've got Eryk Anders at 89 or whatever that was. A little more affordable, a lot more affordable. But Eryk Anders isn't as good of a fighter as Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar Nurmagomedov is tried and true, has covered this salary 100% of the times he stepped in that octagon, and I think he does it again. If you're building a cash entry, you need to have Umar in your lineup. Umar is probably going to be the highest owned fighter on this entire slate. And it's because he is reliable. He is tried and true. He has proven to be worth that money. I think you got to go Umar again. And I think you just got to lean on past success for future success here. Then we have Muhammad Mokaev taking on Alex Perez. Muhammad Mokaev, $9,100. Now we're starting to play some games. That's a surprisingly affordable price point for Muhammad Mokaev. I think he dominates this fight. I don't know why. Betting odds, he's a 3-1 favorite. That's a big favorite. Should be 6-7-1, in my opinion. But Muhammad Mokaev, $9,100. Let's go through his salary very quickly, and then we'll talk about his skills. Covered it. Never once has even sniffed not covering his salary. The closest he ever came to not covering his salary was 99 points against Joffel Filo. Outside of that, blew away his salary every single time. This guy's a nonstop wrestler, incredible wrestling, good grappling. He'll come forward, just shoot, dive, shoot, grapple. Doesn't even really attempt to strike at all. The most strikes he's ever landed in a fight, significant strikes, was 21. The rest of these, so he landed 119 against Gordon. Those are just pitter-patter on the ground, right? They don't count as significant strikes because they're not very meaningful. It's just touching. They count, they score, but they're not going to put anybody out. That's the difference between a significant strike and just a strike. Muhammad Mokaev is fighting Alex Perez. Alex Perez hasn't had a win in 4 years. Here's his last win against Jussier Formiga in 2020. And he beat Jussier Formiga. You see KO, TKO. That was leg kicks. He chopped that dude's legs down, and it was incredible. But since then, he fought later that year. Figueiredo, lost. Waited 2 years, fought Pantoja, lost. All of a sudden, Alex Perez can get taken down. All of a sudden, Alex Perez can be in some trouble. Alex Perez does not win this fight. He's 4 years removed from his last win. He doesn't have a single win. None of these people are currently in the UFC. None of them. Not one. Benavidez lost that fight. Best name on here, lost that fight. He doesn't have a single win over an active roster UFC fighter. Hasn't won a fight in 4 years. Hasn't fought in a year and a half. Talking about all the side gigs he's got going on. I have an acai company. And that's great. He has to set himself up for his future. He has to set him. Fighting isn't going to pay his bills forever. It just isn't. So good for him. The difference is, at these lower weight classes, at this point in your career, you have to be 100% all in, or a young, up-and-coming, hungry guy like Muhammad Mokaev is going to blow right through you, and I think that's exactly what happens. Muhammad Mokaev should be in your lineup at $9,100. If you have to choose between him and Umar when you're building your lineup, you got to go Muhammad over Umar. That extra $600 can do you some good further down. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Vitor Petrino taking on Tyson Pedro. Vitor Petrino, $9,000. Another very expensive guy. Does Vitor cover his salary? Yes. Vitor Petrino is a physical specimen. He will come forward. He will bomb away on the feet. He will just pick you up, slam you on the ground, wrestle whenever he wants to wrestle, strike whenever he wants to strike. A physical specimen of a man. He's insanely dangerous, insanely tough, has good cardio, monster power. On the Contender Series, which you don't see here, he was in a triangle choke. He old school Rampage Jackson, Ricardo Arona, picked him up, slammed him down, got through that. Muhammad Mokaev. Vitor Petrino is a very, very dangerous man. A very dangerous man. And he's got plenty of cardio. He put up 116 points against Anton Pleasureman, ridiculous nickname, Turkoj. He had 7 takedowns, 6 minutes of control time, and put up the most amount of points he's ever put up. He is fighting Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro is very good. Tyson Pedro's tough. He's another one of these guys that had a super long layoff between 18 and 22. Then he came back, finished Villanueva. We're like, oh shit, all of a sudden he can strike, because before that, he was a bit of a wrestler guy. Bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd, if you will. But not quite a jiu-jitsu nerd. That's an exaggeration. He would shoot takedowns, very clean takedowns. He'll wait for you to come to him, lower his level, boom, blast double. So he would shoot takedowns. He would get it to the ground. He's got very good jiu-jitsu. If he worked through here, Shogun Rua beat him. He took a few years off, came back, finished Ike Villanueva, finished Hunsucker, fought Bukauskas, lost that decision. Then he just beat and finished Anton Turkov. Tyson Pedro is very good. One of the live dogs on this card, but the only way he can win this fight is if he somehow weathers a Vitor Petrino storm and Vitor slows down. I do think Vitor Petrino wins this fight. Tyson Pedro is a good grappler. Tyson Pedro has found some hand, good power in his striking all of a sudden. but I don't think he's going to get this win. I don't think he's going to put up the numbers. If you want to have a little bit of exposure to him into a large field tournament, go for it. He should not be in any single entry or cast entry lineups. And then again, if we look at Vitor, he does cover his salary, he does make things happen. But if I have to choose between him and Muhammad Mokaev, I'll take the $9,100 wrestler who is fighting somebody that hasn't won in 4 years over the somewhat unproven, talented, dangerous guy over Tyson Pedro. So if you're picking at that range, I'll go Mokaev over Petrino, but I do think Petrino wins. And then we have the main event of the evening. We have Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Shamil Gaziev. I think Shamil wins this fight. I think Shamil's going to come forward, touch him up, and get some wrestling going. I don't think Shamil wants to deal with the power of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho Rozenstruik hits insanely hard. He's a good counter striker, and Shamil comes forward. I mean, Shamil's style plays perfectly into Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Shamil comes forward, stays in your face, moves the hands. And if he's going to come forward, put on that pressure like he did against Martin Budai, Shamil could get caught. I think he's smarter than that, though. He has said, I will do whatever I need to do to win this fight, which is preempting a boring wrestling match. I think Shamil comes forward, gets the cage control, works a takedown. As dangerous as Jairzinho Rozenstruik is on his feet, doesn't have much to offer on the ground. Where Shamil, very, very dangerous on his feet, also a good wrestler. He is a Dagestani. He doesn't fight like a Dagestani, but he does have the wrestling in his back pocket. Big double legs, big body locks. He gets taken down, but that's not going to be a concern here. He's fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho certainly the more proven entity of the two. All the way back in 2019, plenty of good wins, including over Andrei Arlovsky, Alistair Overeem, all-time great heavyweight striker. He beat him. He finished him. But what you don't see here is he was taken down by Alistair Overeem. He's actually been taken down by most of these higher level fighters. All the good fighters have taken him down. And I think that's going to be the biggest gap here. And you could say, yes, he's 2-3 in his last 5, but Curtis Blades, giant wrestler. Alexander Volkov has been a top 10 heavyweight for 10 freaking years. He finally fought somebody not great. He beat the shit out of him. And then Jalton Almeida exploited the grappling hole. I think the exploitation of the grappling hole is what Shamil is going to do. But if he doesn't, if this remains a striking match, Jairzinho finishes Shamil Gaziev. He just does. Jairzinho's got plenty of cardio where Shamil has had questionable cardio in the past. Jairzinho's got plenty of power and the better counter striking. So Shamil's the more aggressive guy, the more creative guy, the more fun guy to watch. And Shamil has more ways to win, but Jairzinho's more dangerous in the raw power. And Shamil's got to play it safe. I think Shamil wins this fight. Shamil will be in my lineup, but certainly you're going to need exposure to both of these guys. Guys, that is the breakdown. Join these people. Join the $470,000 winnings in the last 6 months. Join these three. Squirts with the $24,000 ticket 2 weeks ago. Tegan taking down the $120,000 Mega Mini Max tournament last week. G Money, who said he won first place using the optimizer for the first time ever. Join these people. This is your review. This is your testament, your real life review of, hey, I signed up and it's working for me. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member at the top. It's only $10 a month. You will unlock every single thing we do. We don't play the tier game. We don't play the add-on game. One price, $10 for an entire month. You get access to every single thing we do. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member at the top.